What's up, Christian caregiver? It's Lizette, your dementia coach, and today we are having a very special episode of Ask the Dementia Coach here on Christian Dementia Caregiving, where I have the unique privilege of meeting two of our listeners who were extremely brave and willing and wonderful to participate in this podcast episode where we spent a fair amount of time unpacking their own unique challenges and questions that they have related to their own dementia caregiving journey. If you haven't yet signed up for one of these Ask the Dementia Coach monthly meetups, I invite you to the next one, which ironically will be my birthday, September the 19th at 6 p.m. So if you want to hang out with me on my 54th birthday, I invite you to go to the link in the show notes where you can come spend an evening with me. I keep the numbers of registrations small so that we can spend time together, quality time together to help you answer some of your specific dementia-related questions. Both of these ladies who participated this month were extremely brave. Neither of them asked to have their names changed, and both of them were willing to be on camera. Having said that, you do not need to be on camera, and if you would like to, we can use a pseudonym. We can change your name very easily so that you can remain fairly anonymous. So don't let the fear of other people hearing your questions and knowing who you are perhaps keep you from participating in this unique opportunity to be on the podcast as well as to help other people. Because I know one thing for sure, and that is if you have that particular question, so does someone else. So I invite you to September's Ask the Dementia Coach session, or the monthly meetup, which will be on September the 19th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. The link to register for that is in the show notes. But without further ado, meet our two very first, they're not the exact first, but they're one of the first, they're some of the first people who have been on this monthly meetup and asking their specific questions related to being a dementia caregiver. So enjoy this very special episode where I know you will find tremendous value in listening to other people's journey. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining me for the Ask the Dementia Coach monthly meetup that I am doing to serve people in our community. And I really appreciate you being here and being willing to ask questions and be on the podcast. So I'm super proud of you guys. This is a big deal. You mentioned before we started recording that you help a younger sister.
No, she's older.
She's an older.
She's old. Yeah, I'm the youngest. She's the older.
You're the youngest sister. And where's home, if you don't mind? And whatever you don't want to share, you don't have to share. I'm a friendly person. I like to know about people. So,
I'm in Canada.
You're in Canada. Wonderful. Yes. Where in Canada?
Are you familiar with Canada?
A little bit. You have a French last name because I saw your last name.
So, anyway, it's in New Brunswick. It's one of the Atlantic.
And are you Canadian? Because I know a lot of people who move to Canada, so it's not a question.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, I am Canadian. Yes.
So tell me a little bit about your situation. How can I help you today?
Well, I usually go over to my sister's and brother-in-law's place. They invite me over for Sunday night for supper, usually. And well, be 2 weekends ago this weekend. My brother-in-law had to go away for the weekend, but he did come home at night, which was good. Anyway, so I was with my sister, and I found that she was was very confused at times, and I found that she got anxious,
Okay.
and I was just well, it's hard to talk to her. Like I think last time you had a Zoom meeting, whatever. I asked you how to be able to communicate with her, and you had said something to the fact that things in the house, things around in the house, things that she can see. So that's because she doesn't make she tries to say something, but it doesn't come out. What she wants to express.
Okay.
So, and she finds it hard that way. So
how long, refresh my memory, how long has she had, number one, does she have a diagnosis? And number two, if she does, how long has she had dementia?
Yes, I think since 2014. No.
Okay.
2012. Oh, 2012.
So a good 14 years. So she's been down this journey for a while, correct?
Yes, right. Okay. Yes.
Can she still dress herself?
Yes, she can. Yes.
Okay. Does she do it well? Does she put everything together, sequence it properly, or is it kind of you give her the clothes and you kind of have to help her and tell her how to do it, but she can still do it?
No, she picks out herself and
okay. So she picks out her clothes herself and she gets dressed all by herself. Nobody has to help her.
No, I don't know.
But she's having a harder time with her words. Am I understanding?
Yes. Yes, she is. Yes.
Okay. Do you know what kind of dementia she has?
She says she has Alzheimer's.
She has Alzheimer's. Okay.
Yes.
Has she had a stroke before?
No.
Okay. When you say she's having a hard time with her words, is she still speaking? And every now and then she's just struggling to get a word out? Or what does it look like? Can you help me with that?
Well, she doesn't know how, and of course her brain is not properly functioning, right? And she has a hard time. Like, her main conversation, like they have a nice sunny room, and of course the back of the house and all the trees. So a lot of her comments are, "Oh, the trees are still today."
Okay. So
And that's her
what I hear you saying is she's saying a lot of the same things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she's repeating herself a lot.
Oh, yes, she has been for a while.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about what's frustrating. Are you trying to find a way to connect with her, or do you feel frustrated because she says the same thing over and over again and you can't get her off the track? Tell me a little bit about what's going on.
No, I'm getting used to her repeating.
Okay.
And I just kind of go along with what she says.
Okay. And does that work?
Pretty well, yes.
Okay.
After listening to you a couple of times.
Okay, wonderful. That's great. I'm so happy to hear that. So you mentioned anxiety. You mentioned that she was anxious. What does that look like? How does that show up in her?
Well, my other sister that's here visiting with me this week, we had called her on the weekend I stayed with her. We had called her on Sunday afternoon, and after we got done talking, she was confused because she thought she was going to have company, and she just said how many people or something, and I said no, it's just the two of us. And then her husband, my brother-in-law, was going to come home at 5:30, 26 or something like that. But then she had forgotten. Of course, her time is, time doesn't mean anything.
No, time does not mean anything after a while, right?
No.
It kind of blurs into one big long period of time for the person. So what I hear you saying, Helen, is that it seems to me like you're struggling to understand how to navigate the confusion and the questions. Is that accurate?
Yes, I would say so.
Okay. So
Well, I just
go ahead.
okay. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I interrupted you. That's okay.
No,
No,
it's okay.
I was going to say that Sunday afternoon she looked. Well, I had put the supper in,
Mhm.
and she kept looking at her watch. 5 after 4, 7 minutes after 4, 10 after 4, but and she just, again, she got was wondering, is anybody coming? Is anybody coming here for supper? And she mentioned that again, and I said, no, there's just the two of us. And then again, I said that her husband, my brother-in-law, was going to come home at 5:30 or shortly after.
So was that conversation frustrating to you? Are you looking for another way of trying to have communicated with her, or how can I help you today?
Well, I just wondered how I can communicate. But anyways, the thought came up to me. She likes music, and when
Okay.
we go to church, we had gone to church that morning, and of course she keeps time with the music,
Of
and I
course.
know she likes it. And I've heard before that, and I've read or something, maybe you had mentioned that the Alzheimer patients like music, and of course she keeps the time, right?
Mhm.
And so I said, let's sing.
Oh,
So,
that's a wonderful strategy.
so she agreed to it, and that helped pass the time.
Huh?
And one of the choruses that we sang a couple hymns. And of course, she couldn't get all the words, but that was fine.
That's okay. I can't get all the words always.
No, I can't either because we don't sing the hymns anymore. We sing choruses. Anyways, I suggested another chorus, and of course, there's 2 lines she couldn't get. Anyways, she said, "Can we sing it again?" I said, "Sure." We sang it again. She said, "Can we sing it again?" I said, "Sure, no problem." So we must have sang it about 10 times, and she still couldn't get those 2 lines. So I tried to do a little actions. I don't know if you probably know. His eyes have she couldn't get the word HAVE,
Mhm.
and she couldn't get the word SEEN, seen, and then she couldn't get the ears have heard. She couldn't get the HAVE again, and she couldn't get the heard. But anyways, as I say, we must have sang it about 10 times, and that helped pass the time. And she forgot about a watch.
Well, there you go. So you did
So
a really good technique called distraction. You
okay,
dis you distracted her with something else. So a
right,
couple of other things, other ways of doing distraction or getting a person kind of think of a broken record, right? When a person's asking the same question or they're doing the same thing looking at their watch. It's kind of like a broken record, right? That's stuck kind of
okay,
in a little loop. And so by engaging her in an activity like you did, the singing, or if there was a simple task that she could do with you, like maybe you go and get some towels out of the closet and mess them up, but don't let her see you messing them up. You mess them up in another room so that looks like laundry, and you say, hey sis, let's just fold the laundry together and just do something with her, something repetitive, something that she's done for her whole life. It could be as simple as taking knives and forks and sorting them into knives and forks, or, if the food was in the oven and you didn't need to cook, still you could say, It's summer right now, still, it's still warm. You could maybe say, let's go for a little bit of a walk, and to just distract the person. Oftentimes, when a person is asking questions over and over, or they're checking their watch, they're anxious because she might have been wondering where her husband is, not understanding when he's coming home, or, any of those kinds of things. So trying to go behind and finding the emotion and seeing if you can connect with her emotionally and not logically, right? When we go to logic, it goes into the left side of the person's brain, and the emotions kind of go more towards the right side of a person's brain. So how you connect with her emotionally is, if she says to you, "Oh, I thought we're having somebody come over for dinner." Instead of correcting her, you can say, "Oh, well, that would be nice. Who would you like to have over for dinner?" And just get her talking. Just open-ended questions. It doesn't need to be right. It
okay,
doesn't matter, right? So just like you did with the words in the chorus, it wasn't important that the words were all right. It was that you were singing and making a connection. And so if you can get her to talk, if she says something, tell her, well, tell me more about that. Just a very simple statement. It's my favorite thing to say. Well, tell me more about that, and just get her talking. And every time she stops, you just say, well, tell me more. Or that's interesting. Give me some more. And so you're not really asking her to answer a question where she has to think through and pull something out. Whatever is in her head will just come out. And you may get some wonderful stories that you've never heard before from when she was a child or when you guys were children. You know, she's older than you, so she might have stories about you when you were little that you've never heard before. So if you can get her talking, that can be a way to engage with her. How does that sound?
Yeah, okay. We did, well, when we were eating our meals, like they have plates up above their china cabinet. And I did mention like how beautiful they were. And we talked about that a little bit. So tried to, and then pictures that were on the wall, talked about that.
Yeah, those are great strategy, and you're doing such a good job. And what a blessing you are to your sister, and what a blessing you were to your brother-in-law so he could go away.
Right. And I've gone over a couple other times in the afternoon so he could do errands or something. And
well, that is awesome. I am so glad you came and asked those questions. And thank you for sharing your story with us. It's very courageous I know for a lot of people, it's scary to come onto a podcast. So I'm very proud of you, young lady, for being willing to be here and to share your story with your sister. And I appreciate that tremendously.
well, thank you very much.
You are welcome. Are you feeling stressed as a Christian dementia caregiver? Let me help. I offer a monthly dementia care audit to one listener of this program to provide you with personalized but evidence-based strategies from a biblical perspective. We only have one session available each month. Don't miss this opportunity to make your dementia caregiving journey easier. Schedule your own dementia care audit today. So let me hear from Miss Deb. Miss Deb, how are you, young lady?
Trying to get my picture, my framing better here.
Well, there you go.
I'm quite stressed, Lisette, I got to admit, but I'm going to make the best of it here.
Okay. I know you and I have spoken before, Deb, but you got to forgive me. It's been a hot minute. So tell me
I hear
about
you.
your
No
story.
problem. Well, you and I and my sister spoke several months ago.
Okay.
I should have looked it up how long ago, but things have changed.
It's been a bit.
It's been a bit, yeah. And I think that point, I think my sister, whose name was Terry,
Okay.
I think we were consulting with you about the situation where my dad was living with his girlfriends, and we were trying to strategize, getting them to talk about what they might like for, living healthcare arrangements if they can't live independently anymore. Well, things have radically changed since then.
Okay.
Whenever that was, they continued to be hesitant. They didn't really, we never got to a point where they really helped figure it out. So then, beginning of June, my dad had a procedure, medical, he had a scope that he had to have done. So my sister Terry went with him, and it went fine. They didn't find anything, and they came back home, and my dad fell.
Mhm.
So my sister could not pick him up. My dad is 6'4", and my sister is my height, only 5'4". And so she called the EMTs. They came, picked him up. Okay, within an hour, she said, "Dad, stay put." Well, of course he didn't. And he got up, and from the other room, she hears this big crash, and he fell on top of his walker and then onto the floor. So she called the ambulance this time, and they brought him to the hospital, checked him over. Nothing, he didn't break anything, just some bruises. And he had been a fall risk for a while.
Mhm.
He had been, finally, he gave in to using his little rollator walker that I gave him. He started, at first he rejected, he's like, I'm never going to need that. And then he started loving it, right? So anyway, they kept him in the regular hospital for that week. Then by that Friday, they transferred him to a nursing home / rehab facility. And, he started doing PT and OT. Now, as far as his cognition, he was doing, I don't know how to really quantify it, but he was doing okay, you know. But then they started, I think they put him on a few more medications. Trazodone was a disaster. That gave him hallucinations. We said, please take him off that and don't give it to him again. They made a boo-boo and did again, and he had more hallucinations and thought the hospital staff was torturing him. But we've been
so
good
sorry.
now for a couple months. So in the rehab facility, my dad's very charming, very social, so he's making a lot of friends. He's friendly. However, two major things. Number one, his girlfriend said he cannot move back to her house. So he had been living there for 8 years. They're both the same age, 89. And she's saying, no, I'm concerned that I already couldn't take care of him enough. I can't let him come back here. She was not, you remember, I don't know if you do remember, we were talking about whether they could get some live-in help. She's continued to refuse that. No, no live-in help. No one's going to live at her house. She owns the place. Okay.
Right, I recall that.
Yep. Yep. And so, and she mentioned, she said, oh, your dad is starting to slip and I'm afraid he's going to get violent. That was the other thing. So, and she's a petite woman too. And what we didn't know until later on was that she was already working with her son she was already on several waiting lists for assisted living. And she was not going to pay my dad's way because my dad does not have a lot of money. She does.
I
And
remember that.
yep. And he had been living there rent free. He would contribute to certain projects. So, and I think her kids were contributing their opinions about the situation.
Sure.
So then the other major thing is that dad has started to really nosedive with his, I'm going to call it dementia. We have a medical report from last week, at which point they said he has only, I don't have a copy of it here, something like 10% cognitive ability, and he can no longer make his own decisions. So
Okay.
my sister is the healthcare proxy, and now they have activated that.
Okay.
Okay. But meanwhile, I'm feeling so badly for my dad because he is thinking that he's moving back to Nancy's.
Understand.
And I just heard what you said to, and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the other woman's name, Helen,
Helen, yes.
right now, distracting and asking questions and let them be on their track. This is part of the strategy that I think that I want to try to understand better. So, we had a meeting at the nursing home last week. So he's been in there since June 7th. So what's that? July, August. It's been about 10 weeks, I think. 11.
Yep. So he's coming up on his 100 days under Medicare.
Oh, is that what it is?
So, if he was still under the skilled nursing part, your dad has Medicare, correct?
Yes.
Do you know if he has traditional Medicare?
He has what's called well care.
Okay. So he
I don't know
has
if you remember, just
Medicare replacement policy. That WellCare is it's still Medicare, and they follow Medicare's rules, but it's not traditional Medicare. When did you say he went into the facility? June 21st?
No, he went into the nursing home June 7th. So about a month ago, they said he was ready to be released. They said that he had reached his plateau, and I think they were saying the insurance was no longer going to cover him to get the PT and OT.
Give me 1 second.
Sure.
So he's been in the facility for 77 days. No, that's wrong. Something's wrong. I can't do math. 77 days. So the way Medicare works is a person is allotted in the United States up to 100 days in a skilled nursing facility under their Medicare Part A benefits. The
Okay.
caveat of that is what they were saying, that he has met his maximum potential, right? So what they're telling you is this is the new normal.
Yeah.
We're not saying when we, and I'm putting my therapist hat on, not my coach hat, but when the therapists say they've met their maximum potential, that's usually indicating that they're getting close to where we think their new baseline is, or they're not making big noticeable changes that insurance will cover. People
Okay.
often continue to slowly increase and improve, but it takes such a long period of time that there's nothing that we can measure. And so insurance doesn't cover.
Well, and what happened, Lisa, was about a month ago, they were ready to release him.
Mhm.
And because he doesn't have a place to go,
Mhm.
although he keeps saying that he does,
Right.
then they're keeping him there. They're letting him stay there. And then last week we had a meeting. That was the point at which we got the document that said he's at 10%, whatever you call it, basically
Right.
capacity. And that the healthcare, my sister's already power of attorney.
Mhm.
That also happened since we spoke. Durable power of attorney. And that was already in effect. We already, thank God, we got some paperwork done on that
Okay.
shortly after he was in the nursing home. I think it was maybe still in the hospital, but I think nursing home. So then, we are, again, we're in Massachusetts. I don't know if you remember that. So we've been advised to apply for Mass Health, which is Medicaid in
Correct.
Massachusetts. And with that, if he moves to a place where he can have services brought in, where he will have access to like having food cooked for him in a home environment where there's
Mhm.
maybe an HCA or something. I mean, a
Like an ALF, is an assisted living, a Medicaid facility.
something like that, then, we're signing up for that. So the part that's become really stressful, and I know this is being recorded and I have to,
Parse your words. It's okay.
I have to be gracious in how I talk about it in case my sister sees this recording, which she probably won't because that's part of the problem. She won't come to these things. I kind of forced her into doing it the last time. So she's in charge of dad's money and his decisions, at least. I mean, yes, now medical and everything. And she freely admits she doesn't really love my dad. She doesn't feel love for him. I do. And I do want to help him. I do want to see the best for him. I visit much more often. Although, so Terry and I, we go through ebbs and flows of working together well, and then she slams me for something. And what's happening is I'm homeless. That happened since we spoke to you. I faced a no fault eviction back on April 4th, had to be out. And I've been like, I'm sitting here in my car because I just registered for this campsite. I'm going to be camping out tonight. I was couch surfing. I've house sat, but I'm homeless. And Terry sees no responsibility or obligation to help me whatsoever,
Mhm.
which is very hard. It's very
So
hard.
can I ask a couple questions? Not to
Yeah.
interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
So you have a short-term and a long-term problem, both you and personally and dad, right? The
Yeah.
short-term problem is when his insurance, when his Part A benefits stop paying because he's met his maximum potential, your choices are he has to go somewhere else
Mhm.
or he becomes private pay in the nursing home until his Medicaid kicks in.
Yeah. And so my sister's the one paying the bills, right? And
Okay.
she had spoken to them to realize that they allowed her to pay the Medicaid, the Mass Health uh, fee, the rate
Mhm.
of I think 1,200 a month, maybe
Okay.
1,500, as if he's already approved. Because
Okay.
we're this close to getting him approved. What we had to do,
Right.
they required us to talk about his death benefits and to set that money aside before we had to include that in the application. And Terry, I think she submitted that at this point. So, and we're pretty sure he's going to be approved. And then that rate. So just today, anyway, you want to ask more questions?
So we know for temporarily, we don't have to worry about them kicking Dad to the curb.
I think you're right about that. They're not talking about it anyway.
Okay.
You know.
So there's a plan in place for your dad. Do you know if the plan is going to be for him to continue to stay at the skilled nursing facility, or are they going to be looking for like an assisted living level of care?
So I don't know if this is true in all states. You're what, in South Carolina?
Mhm.
We have what's called area agencies on aging. Is that true in all states? Okay. So Dad has been he was living in Westford, Mass. Now he's in the facility in Chelmsford, Mass, which is Eastern. My sister's in Western Mass, which is where I am right now, which may change within 24 hours because I have a friend I'm waiting to hear from in Southern Maine staying there. So, but they have an area agency on aging near where my dad is. And then we just realized through meeting with her that she can network. They share a computer database with the agency out here. So what's happening is we're working with her and her agency that she's helping find the housing.
Okay.
She knows that what's really tricky is that Dad continues to, I'll tell you the story from today in a minute, which to me, it indicated a new chapter in the dementia, a new level of impairment. So we've been like, well, should we let Dad live near Nancy because she's going to an assisted living that's still in that area? Or do we make sure we get him closer to us, or at least Terry, so that we can help take care of him? Or are we going to meet with Dad's resentment that we pulled him away from his girlfriend? And honestly, I know I can say this knowing my dad will never see this video. He's slipping so rapidly that I don't know how soon he's not going to recognize us. He's already starting to call me by my mother's name, and she passed 8 years ago.
Because I think based on what you have told me about Nancy is that she sees this as an opportunity for a break.
And I do think that her kids, who are, I guess, in their 60s, they may be really pushing for that.
Right.
And meanwhile, we tried to talk with them, and they're just very,
The reality of the matter is they were not married.
right,
He has no legal rights with her.
right,
Her children are going to protect her.
yeah.
And I'll be the bearer of bad news. I think that boat has sailed. Okay.
Yeah. I think at this point that you're absolutely right. And I just feel really badly for my dad because he's a combination of expressing how confused he knows that he is about a lot of things, and he's heartbroken.
Right.
You know,
And I understand that, and I feel for him related to that. But now I want to talk to you from the caregiver side, from the daughter of somebody who is going through this side. Because they were not married and he has no legal rights and she is not going to provide him with the level of comfort that he has become accustomed to in living with her, the decisions that you and Terry need to make have to be from what's best for the two of you in order to take care of your dad.
What's interesting,
she is not going to be a part of this solution. She is not the healthcare provider proxy. She's not the durable power of attorney or anything. So there's in essence a clean break. Even though she's not deceased, you can almost see it as if she has passed away, and this is not an option for him anymore moving forward.
The piece that we still need to deal with, and the reason we have to do our best to be gracious to her and her kids. We did clarify from my dad's attorney. Remember, we have that lawsuit he had with my other sister? That's resolved, by the way. That's done.
Good.
So again, I want to be careful what I say here, but he's going to be getting a portion of money from that.
Right. But until
yeah.
that happens,
Yeah.
Medicaid is his best protection, right? His best way of having a roof over his head. Now,
Dad was just calling me. Just
the questions that you need to consider, this is homework for you to keep in the back of your mind. Depending on how much that settlement is,
yeah,
it can throw him out of qualifying for Medicaid.
I know. And so my sister is very, very aware of that as she's filled out the paperwork. And at the point she did submit the paperwork, she said he did not have other assets because he didn't.
Right.
And that
he's
money
not
had
telling a lie.
technically not been dispersed, but they could find it.
But what you could consider is talking to an attorney and seeing if it can be put into a trust.
It is. That's what we're doing. That's
Right.
what we're doing.
So you can
this
continue to protect that asset for his benefit.
She is saying that it's too late. That ship has sailed. The fact that the money was within his control means that they're going to count it as part of that 5-year look back.
Probably.
So we're just buying our time. So the other part of this is, and the part that I'm here tonight, well, there's a lot of reasons I'm here tonight.
I'm happy you're here.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been very, very daunting, very stressful. And I am here as a Christian, knowing that God's in charge, and I'm just trying to figure out what the plan is and what lessons I'm supposed to be learning.
Is there any possibility to solve the problem of your housing needs as well as your dad's housing needs?
So that
for you to talk to your sister about setting him up in a small apartment where where you can provide care for him, or is his level of care to the point that it's not safe or feasible for you?
That's what I was going to bring up because, and this is where I need to try to be gracious while I'm here being recorded because my sister, let's just say she's the golden child. I understand. I'm the scapegoat. And that's been a dynamic for a while, parents with narcissistic personalities. So dad's the lesser narcissist. But what's happened is Terry has been dangling the carrot over the last few months, even sending me property listings saying, let's buy a property when dad gets his money and you guys can live there and we'll get some CNAs in and other people to help. Yay. Like you said, it would solve both of our housing problems at the same time. Then she's pulled the rug out from underneath all that and has been very disrespectful of me in the way she's viewing me and my, let's just say status in the situation. There's a lot of resentment. There's a lot of sibling rivalry. And it's very difficult because if it weren't for dad and his need for help at this point, I'd be walking away.
I understand.
My own sanity.
I understand. Yes, ma'am.
And so she's taunting me, in my opinion, egging me on, just baiting me to say or do something that's going to get me taken out of the equation. And dad has a will. Dad, we're putting this trust together. I mean, pretty much, there are provisions, but she's not making it easy at all. And so I've been wanting to move to Maine. She's in Western Mass. And if dad goes closer to her, it's more difficult for me. So now I have to think, all right, while dad's alive and I'm the one that really enjoys his company and wants to nurture and support him, she wants no part of that. She's just the money person. She works for a bank and that's kind of her mindset. Do I need to change my plan? And what if dad lives another 10 years?
So what I would counsel you, what I would coach you is my whole premise, my whole view of dementia caregiving is it is not at the expense of you.
Yeah. And deciding how to define that is the tricky part.
Well,
right?
But the reality and, have you ever heard the expression fools rush in where angels fear to tread?
I've heard it. Explain in this context how that applies.
So sometimes I say things that other people might not say.
Okay.
I'm pretty direct and pretty blunt, but it comes from a caring perspective. It doesn't come from I'm setting out to hurt or harm people's feelings. But as in the years that I've been doing this, I have recognized one thing, and that is I cannot help people if I'm not willing and able to tell them the truth that they don't want to hear. Okay. So the reality of your situation is that you are not the decision maker. Your sister is the decision maker. She drives this train, whether you like where she's driving it, and if she drives it off a cliff, unless you go to court and try to take over, power of attorney and all those kinds of things and fight her, which I wouldn't recommend. Your options are limited related to
Right.
making the decisions.
And
So
the crux of what I'm seeing right now, Lisette, is that she's, well, are you going to bring Dad to his medical appointment Friday, which is tomorrow? And I said, well, I'm still I'm trying to find another place to live, right? And, it's like she's holding me to this high standard of continuing to go like the little engine that could.
right.
And, she's got a job, she's got 2 homes, she's got a husband, she's got kids, everything's all set, and pushing me and to the brink. And so if I question her, challenge her, criticize her, it's right there for me to be cut out of any of the financial part. So it's, yes, she's the decision maker, but she wants me to be part of the decision making. I have continued to be, but it's under a lot of duress and a lot of emotional abuse.
But you brought up a valid point. If your dad lives another 10 years,
Yeah.
what does your life and your health and your future looks like if you are not able to move forward?
Yeah.
We know a few things. Your dad is going to be taken care of because he now has Medicaid, and
But he's on the verge of it. Yep.
right. They will either keep him in the nursing home if his level of care is not to the point that he can go to an assisted living. If he
Yeah.
goes to an assisted living and he doesn't succeed there, then they will consider a memory care or another nursing home. So we know that your father, it's not optimal, it's not ideal, it's not what you would have probably chosen to do, but it is the reality, right? So we know he is taken care of. Now we have to look at Deb, and Deb needs to take care of Deb. And if that means moving to Maine and Western Mass are not that far apart. You're not on the other side of the country.
It might be 2.5 to 3 hours.
Right. You're still within a drivable distance. You may not be able to be boots on the ground, but you can continue to support your sister. You can tell her, I support you wholeheartedly in your decisions, and not like, I'll use my sister and I as an example. We have a good relationship, so it's not the same dynamic.
And you remember that I know your sister in person.
Yes, I do. Well, she was just here in Greenville from New Hampshire, right? So she came down here for the weekend, and the benefit that my sister gives me is the way she supports me is she supports whatever decision I make. So the way you can support your sister is supporting whether you agree with her decision or not, supporting her decision, because we have to be gracious and say she is doing the best that she can. She is making the best decisions that she knows how to make in this unusual and difficult situation. He appointed her, or somebody appointed her as that decision maker. So now Deb needs to take care of Deb, because winter's coming. You need to find a place to live. You cannot live in your car in Massachusetts in the dead of winter. So you need to strongly consider, as hard as this is, letting it go.
Yeah.
And focusing on you, because if you can get your feet under you, if you can get your solid base again, then you have a basis with which to come back.
Exactly.
And continue to then step in and help. You can only help someone from a a full glass, not an empty glass. And so
And
you're
might I just point out a point in fact, Terry has had me come to her house to couch surf. I mean, sleep in a bedroom for like at a week at a time, twice now, and promptly kicked me out when she felt we had some kind of a little disagreement that didn't sit well with her. I was booted right out, right out. And it just happened last week.
right.
So it's beyond just for the decider, you know, the
Right.
decision maker, but it starts to be a little
Right.
abusive. So I hear you and I'm writing it down that
What I want you to consider, Deb, and this is the hard part. This is the really hard part.
yeah,
You cannot change what somebody else chooses to do. You cannot change what your sister decides or doesn't decide to do. Only change how you respond to what your sister does.
yeah, and it's
And
not always a good response. I might uh admit to.
so what you could really consider working on is almost not rising to her bait,
Yeah.
because you, I had a conversation with a friend of mine. She's in my community. She's in my coaching community earlier this week, actually yesterday. And she has a similar situation. Her mom lives with her and her brothers are not involved. And there's some dynamics, some sibling dynamics.
Mhm.
And what I told her was, as a Christian, we are required and mandated to be willing to forgive somebody
Yep.
should they
Yep.
ask us. But that doesn't mean that we forgive them until they ask us, right? God requires us to ask for forgiveness before he forgives us. Forgiveness isn't just, oh, I forgive her in my head and she's forgiven, right? If your sister were to come to you and say, Deb, I'm so sorry, I did wrong, right?
And that is not going to happen, Lizette.
I'm just saying, if that were to happen,
Yeah.
your posture needs to be willing to forgive.
Yep.
But until that happens, you don't need to forgive. And the reason I bring that up is because if you get to a point where you are willing to forgive somebody in a situation like that, your anger, your animosity, all of that all of a sudden magically goes away. And so just remember that in this conversation. I will
Mhm.
pray for you. You have a tough situation. I I coach you, I advise you to focus on you and get your feet under you. You cannot serve and help your dad unless you're in a position where you feel safe, where you have a roof over your head, where you can continue to move forward.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you're not involved. That doesn't mean that you don't care. It just
Right.
means that providentially, right now in your life and in your situation, this is the way it is.
Yeah.
And so get your feet under you, put support around you, and then we regroup again in the future and we see if there are things that we can do differently to then
Okay.
go and support your dad. Your
Yep.
dad is being taken care of.
Yep. He
That's the
does still recognize me. He still does look forward to seeing me.
good. And then you go
Um,
and you be as involved as you were able to be.
yeah,
It cannot feel guilty for not doing more.
I
Because
have
the Lord
some.
has put you in this particular situation for whatever his reason is.
Yeah, exactly.
And he knows that you're not able to take care of your father. Your father is being taken care of. His physical bodily needs, he's not sleeping under a bridge. He's got food in his belly. He's got a roof
Yeah.
over his head. He is okay. Now we need to take care of you.
And I might add that he's not. I can tell you what happened today if there's still time, because it does get into what strategy you suggest in the communication with dad. But before today, I would say that he did not. Every once in a while, he'd say, "I need to get out of this prison," but it was fleetingly. And otherwise, he seems pretty content there. And he is friendly. He takes walks, or he strolls in the wheelchair and goes down the hall and says hi to everybody. And everyone seems to like him quite a bit. And I've been friendly with the nurses because guess what? They're African. And I have a rapport with the Africans. You're South African, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And these are Black, mostly East Africans. But,
Mhm.
I have a rapport with them. So I am also, by showing up and being friendly with the staff, especially the nursing staff, I feel they're probably going to do a better job with my dad.
Mhm. For sure.
They're going to care more. I mean, they already care. So there's that. Is there time to ask you more strategy on communicating with dad?
So the best strategy with your dad, I would do the same thing that I told Helen with her sister, is go for the emotion behind whatever it is he's
Yeah.
saying. If he says, I need to get out of prison, well, Dad, tell me more about prison.
Yeah.
Or tell me more about it, right?
Yeah.
So just meet him where he is. Probably the biggest advice I could give you is be cautious not to get riled up by your sister before you go see your dad,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because
Well,
he will sense that emotion from you if you're
yeah.
frustrated or angry or tired or annoyed or
Yeah.
worried, whatever that negative thing that is, we're fretting because we don't have a place to live. All of those things are valid, right? I'm not saying they're not valid emotions, but if you can tamp them down
Yeah.
when you go see him and really just, I call it fake it till I feel it,
Yeah.
right? Just be upbeat and friendly and kind of wind yourself up a little bit, like go talk to the nurses that you like from Africa and just really banter with them and just get into that positive headspace before you go
That's
see
what I
him.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You have a
Speak
cheerful
my little bit of Swahili with them.
disposition.
Well,
So
thank you.
we'll see.
Well, and I admit, Lisette, that when my dad, before he slipped even more within this last week, I admit, I gripe to him about my sister. He knows the dynamic. He knows it's going way back. But I'm realizing that he's not capable of he's not able to process the information
Right.
anymore.
He
Yeah,
can't be that barrier between the two of you
exactly.
anymore.
Exactly. So I realize I need to go elsewhere for that. And now here's the other logistic problem that's happening. And I don't know if there's any solution except to live closer to where he is. So his hearing is getting really, really bad.
Mhm.
And so as of yesterday, apparently he got it in his head that his job was done there at the nursing home. He says, my job is done here. He told my sister this and he told me this in separate phone calls. And that he's got his bags packed and he's ready to go back to Nancy's. Okay.
Mhm.
Because she has a job to do and
Mhm.
she can't do it herself and he needs to help. So, all right, this started yesterday. And today he's called me like 10 times
Mhm.
saying, I'm ready. My bags are packed. Deb, can you come pick me up to bring me to Nancy's?
I'll be there
And he
as
can't.
soon as I can.
What's that?
I'll be there as soon as I can.
Is that what I say?
You didn't lie, because you will be there as soon as you can. As soon as you can is going to be 3 weeks from today, right?
The problem is with dad's cognition. All right, remember, he was Army intelligence and he was an engineer. If
Right?
there's anything dad remembers at this point, it's the timeline.
Right.
And if I say I'm going to be there after lunch,
But you're not saying, "I'm gonna be there after lunch."
yeah,
You're
yeah.
saying, "I will be there as soon as I can." And he calls you back 10 minutes from then, and he says, "Well, when are you coming?" "Dad, I will be there as soon as I can. I love you.
Well,
I will see you as soon as I can."
so here's
Broken
what's
record.
happening. Here's what's happening with the phone calls. His hearing is really bad.
Right.
I have EMF sensitivity. I don't know if I mentioned that before. I
Mhm.
shouldn't even be on the cell phone any more than I have to. And I'm shouting so he can hear me, and he's not hearing me, and he gets frustrated. And I want him to hear me say, Dad, I'm going to call the nurse and I'm going to find out what's happening and if they're going to let you be released. And he's not hearing me
Right.
now. So here I am physically 2 hours away and I feel badly and I'm calling the nurses. I
Sure.
called the supervisor today and I said, could you clarify for my dad that in fact, you guys just told us you're moving him tomorrow to the other wing and he's getting that confused with moving back to Nancy's.
So what I would caution you is to talk to your dad about being released or moving or anything.
Okay.
Do not talk.
Don't go there at all.
Don't go there at all, because in his mind, he's
Yeah.
moving back to Nancy's.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anything that was, so the confusion about it's time to go to Nancy probably has to do with he heard them talk about him being moved from
Yes.
there to another room. His desire is he wants to go to Nancy's, so he's putting the two pieces together.
Yep.
Reasoning with him about that is not going to change his mind. So I would not talk to him at all about that. At all.
Okay.
So
Just, I'm going to be there. I'm actually going to see him tomorrow because
Right.
I'm going with
and
him
then
to his.
when you leave, Dad, I'll see you as soon as I can.
Yeah.
Don't give him a time. Don't tell him when it's going to be. Just tell him, Dad, I will see you as soon as I can. Well, when's that going to be, Deb? Dad, I will see you as soon as I can. I love you. I will see you as soon as I can. And then sometimes you just have to walk out the door.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, ladies, thank you so very, very much for being here. This was a wonderful conversation. I am so proud of both of you for being willing to be on the Ask the Dementia Coach session. These sessions, they are always going to be free, and you can come whenever you want to. They're once a month.
Once a month. Okay.
Yep. So they're once a month, and you can sign up for the, obviously my stuff's not ready for the next one, but if you want to come to the next one, just shoot me a message or email me and I'll let you know what the date is. I can tell you what the date is because it's going to be in September, which is my birthday month.
Hey.
It is going to be on my birthday, the 19th of September.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. Cool. All right.
Welcome. Thank you so much, ladies. I will be praying for you, Deb. Let me know what I can do to help. Okay?
Thank you.
Helen, thank you for joining us. I'm very excited to have I've met Deb before. And Deb, next time it's not been so long, I will remember the story.
Okay.
Thank you.
Much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.